Hey guys, I'm Dr. Jason Barker with the Natural Athletes Clinic, and every so often in medicine we need to redefine certain conditions because our understanding of these things has increased and expanded. And so one of these is the female athletic triad. And I did a video on this a couple years ago, and since then it's been redefined, and so we're going to cover that today. But as a reminder, the female athletic triad was a set of symptoms that would happen to competitive female athletes where they wound up with pathologically thin bones. They're getting bone fractures. They'd have osteoporosis, it's called. They'd wind up with amenorrhea, which is stopping of their menstrual period. And then they'd also have disordered eating, which came with something like anorexia nervosa or bulimia, some serious eating disorders. So very constrictive definition, only included certain women. So what we found over time is that it was very exclusive in that it didn't include a lot of other symptoms, or if a woman was suffering from one of these main things, she wasn't being adequately treated. So with reworking and better understanding, instead of the female athletic triad, we now have the RED-S, which is relative energy deficiency in sport. So now stick around, because towards the end of this video, I'm going to go over how we deal with this naturally in our clinic, and we think we do a really good job of taking care of people that are suffering from RED-S. So what is RED-S? It's relative energy deficiency in sport. Now, this doesn't mean that these people are energy deficient and they feel tired all the time. It's because they're not getting enough calories on board. So they have an energy deficiency going into their bodies. Now, if you think about it, food is the only place where we get our calories, right? So if you are not taking in enough calories, but you are expending a whole lot more of them, you're going to wind up with this energy deficiency. And basically what happens is the body can't perform its normal physiological functions when there's not enough calories coming in. Now, you see RED-S primarily in sports that emphasize leanness or low body mass. So think about running, gymnastics, ballet, dance, wrestling. So one of the big deals with RED-S is that it includes men now, because we found out over the years is that guys can suffer from this just as easily as women do. Okay, so it includes men. It includes a whole lot of other symptoms that I'll go over in just a second. But how do you wind up with RED-S? Well, people start training for something, they start exercising, and their caloric intake, their energy intake doesn't follow that. It doesn't meet those needs. Or somebody starts training for something and they decide to decrease their calories on purpose because they want to lose weight fast and look good, right? So very common for this stuff to happen these days. Intermittent fasting is very popular, where people won't eat until 11 a.m. or noon of that day. If you do that and then you decide to train for a marathon, that's not what we would call sustainable. That's an easy way to wind up with not enough calories on board. Or it just happens as a matter of course. If somebody starts training really hard, a lot of times people, when they come back from a hard bout, they're not that hungry. So if you're kind of like not eating enough every day, over time you're going to wind up with chronic caloric deficiency. People can kind of slip into this unbeknownst to themselves. So, and then the other thing is this just doesn't happen to hardcore professional or collegiate athletes. This can happen to moms, this can happen to dads, it can happen to recreational athletes. You don't have to be super skinny to be calorically deficient either. So everybody's got kind of a set body mass where things are going to run properly in their body. And so that extra lean body mass isn't always an indicator of this. Now, it helps if you're lean or underweight. It's a lot easier to get there, but it's not a complete qualifier. So what are the symptoms of RED-S? Well, the big ones are hormonal imbalance. So in women, we see the hormones, the way hormone imbalance manifests primarily as a lack of menstruation. So that period will stop, okay? What happens in guys, you start to see a lot of irritability, moodiness. Eventually, this goes on for long enough, you start to see erectile dysfunction, sexual dysfunction like that. So those are the two big hormonal symptoms that you see. Now you can also see things like hair loss, easy bruising. You get those mystery bruises where it looks like you banged into the desk, but you really didn't. You don't know where it came from. Frequent illness. You catch every little bug or cold or flu that's going around. You're sick all the time. You feel sore all the time. You can't recover. Of course, your performance is horrible. And I'm talking about soreness where it's one thing to feel sore after you lifted weights or you did a hard sprint workout, but this is where people have aches and pains, and they always say to me, like, I feel like I aged 10 years, or I feel like I'm an old man or an old lady now. So you see stuff like that. Of course, the thin bones is part of this, so you can see some fractures. Cardiovascular stuff too. You can see something called bradycardia, which is a very low heart rate all the time. Now your heart rate does this all day long, but these people, they just can't seem to get their heart rate up. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, sometimes these people have an elevated resting heart rate. So they may be sitting on the couch and have a pulse rate of like 100 or something like that. So their heart is working pretty hard while they're sitting around. So main point of this is that you see a whole host of different symptoms, and we're seeing it in men and women, and we're seeing it in recreational athletes too. So all ages, all types. So very important that we've included all this stuff now, because of course we can help a lot more people out. Now, how do we help these people out? What do we do in clinic? Well, the first thing is we've got to reteach people how to eat again. So helping people balance out their macronutrients, helping them understand what a certain amount of calories looks like to meet and match their caloric expenditure. So kind of re-educating them on that. Working with a dietitian, dietary counseling is the first step in this one. Big part of this is rest. Everybody hates it when I tell them to rest, but really it's the best thing you can do for your body, because of course you've got to decrease how many calories you're expending while you increase those calories so your body can replace them and use them to restore and rebalance you out. Now, second big one is hormonal balance. Okay, so like I mentioned, when you're not getting enough of those calories on board, your hypothalamus is going to perceive that. That's the prehistoric part of your brain that controls your hormone balance. So when you're not getting those calories in, the hormones start to go haywire. We like to help support a natural hormone balance in people's bodies by supplying very small amounts of a bioidentical hormone, or we use a lot of natural medicines and botanical medicines to help kind of prime those endocrine organs to start manufacturing those hormones on their own naturally. So there's two reasons for doing this, because as you prime those organs, you're kind of reminding them what they're supposed to be doing. So that can really expedite or speed up the healing process of all of this. And then the second reason is because once you get a little bit of those hormones flowing in their body, they start to feel good. They realize there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and it just speeds up healing and overall well-being. Okay, so third thing we do is make sure that people are sleeping, because one of the big symptoms of RED-S is disordered sleep as well. These people are often what we call tired but wired. They're exhausted at night. All they want to do is pass out and go to sleep, but they can't. Their brain is on, they're wired. Or they'll fall asleep okay, and then they'll wake up at 3 a.m., motor's running, full on, and then they can't get back to sleep. When that sleep is fractured like that, what happens? You can't make enough growth hormone. Of course, we need growth hormone to repair our body and help us recover and deal and heal and everything like that. And so that's super important. We've got a really good video on how to boost your growth hormone. There's a link for it right there. And then also at night when you're sleeping, that's when your adrenal glands balance out too. So if you remember, your cortisol should be nice and low at night so that it can spike up and pop up really early at 6 a.m., get your body running so it can do its normal cycle through the day. Sleep is super important for hormone balance. And of course, we've got a lot of great natural remedies to help people get restorative sleep at night. And then the fourth thing is dealing with all the mental, emotional symptoms that come along with this. I listed a lot of physical symptoms, but of course there's tons of mental, emotional stuff that goes on with this too. So when you've got that relative energy deficiency, you're going to see anxiety, you're going to see depression, like I mentioned, irritability, lack of motivation, lack of drive, lots of this stuff. So again, counseling is appropriate, but as we start to get people feeling better, again, we use a lot of different natural medicines and a lot of natural remedies to help calm the brain down so that we can decrease that anxiety, support those neurotransmitters so they don't feel depressed and don't feel that low mood, because again, that's all part of the healing process. Okay, so that's what we do. In summary, we used to have the female athletic triad, which was a very consolidated definition of a certain condition that happened in only female athletes. And then we realized over time that, hey, this stuff can happen to men too. And there's a whole lot of other symptoms. And the root cause of this is just not getting enough calories in with exercising too hard. So I hope that you guys learned something from this video. And of course, I hope you can share this with somebody you know who may be suffering from this or you think has some of these symptoms. They definitely need to check out Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. Of course, please subscribe to our channel. We're always looking for more subscribers, and please punch that like button. Thanks for watching.